Hello there, everybody. This is Mel Allen. Coming up on This Week in Baseball, Rick Russell, the big daddy of the San Francisco Giants, still mowing them down after all these years. Gaining a psychological edge.
They suggested going to a sports psychologist, and at first, my first reaction, I'm not crazy or anything, I'm pretty normal.
And Cooperstown's Hall of Fame library, filled with everything you ever wanted to know about the national pastime. Seek and ye shall find it all, at least some of it, on This Week in Baseball. You know, fans, things don't always go according to plan. Take Shakespeare's Hamlet. Such were the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. In the world of baseball, major leaguers often find themselves facing a sea of troubles. Sometimes it's a hitter who can't get in the groove, or a pitcher who doesn't have it that day. But other times, the problems go a whole lot deeper, and without any rhyme or reason, a player finds he's just plain lost it. Such was the case with Steve Blass. In 8 seasons with the Pirates, Blass won 100 games and lost 67. As the hero of the 1971 World Series, he beat Baltimore twice. The next year, he won 19 games, and then suddenly he couldn't throw strikes anymore. And soon after that, he was out of baseball. Steve Sachs was another mystery. In 1982, he was Rookie of the Year. But when next season came around, he couldn't make a decent throw.
That throwing thing I went through was really something that ate at me very much, and it was a very scary thing. It was, at one point, I thought it was a career-threatening problem, but I was fortunate that I had a lot of support from my family and friends, and I said a lot of prayers. I finally got over that, and I'm glad that I went through it in a way, because I think it made me a better ball player, and I know it made me a better person, so I think it was beneficial for me.
Bruce Ruffins' career was zipping along. His University of Texas team won the World Series. As a rookie with the Phillies, he was 9-4, but then things started to crumble.
Bruce Ruffin had this mental thing about throwing strikes. And, we tried to get the doctors and maybe talk to him, and maybe the confidence level just needs to be built up. Right now, we're going another direction. We've sent him to the minor leagues, hoping that maybe the lower key situation type games, not as big a crowds, a new environment may help him, because the ability's there. He goes out, and when he throws in the bullpen on the side, he's got tremendous stuff. And when it just seems like when he crosses those 2 white lines, that something hits him, the confidence level is just not there to throw strikes, and we know he can do it because we've seen him do it in the past.
In the minors, Ruffin is still struggling. And though he's hard-pressed to explain what's happened, he's not yet ready to seek professional help.
Well, I hope it hadn't come to that. Hard work got me here, and, I've hit a stumbling block, and hopefully hard work will get me back.
It took Scott Bales of the Indians more than hard work to get back to form. Last year, in his 3rd Major League season, he continued to split time between starting and relieving. But midway through the season, he began to lose his effectiveness, and even worse, his confidence.
I was getting hit really hard the second half. Got to where I almost, I didn't want to go out there. They'd call my name, and I didn't know if I wanted to pitch or not. And most of it was confidence problems. And so at the end of the year, Doc Edwards and Mark Wiley, our pitching coach, they suggested going to a sports psychologist. And at first, my first reaction, I'm not crazy or anything. I'm pretty normal Midwestern kid.
Bale's skepticism didn't last long. He went to a sports psychologist and was put on a program that brought results.
We went through 5 different areas like physical conditioning, diet, sleep patterns, goal setting, and visualization. And his idea is it's real simple. If you improve one of those 5 areas, you're going to have more confidence when you go out to the mound. We improved all 5. Step one was the diet. I found out, you know, when I told him about the concentration problems, a lot of it results from junk foods, bad foods, high-fat foods, a lot of sugar foods. Your mind can wander. On the sleep patterns, I went to a sleep lab. They hooked me up all over the place. I slept through the night, and they find out exactly how many hours you sleep to feel your optimal best the next day. Found out I was about 7.5 hours. Last year I was sleeping 10, 11 a night, which can make you groggy and make you, you know, foggy in your mind, and it's all a confidence builder, and I feel it.
Perhaps the most important and certainly the most unusual step was learning to visualize or imagine a situation. For instance, Bales would see himself throwing the pitch he wanted.
Research indicates that if you're relaxed when you are imaging, then you may have more vivid imagery, and certainly perhaps better learning, better acquisition of change, of something that's different. And when you do this prior to an action, then that action has a good chance of being more accurate.
A perfect example is Kirk Gibson's World Series home run. He saw it before he made it happen.
I just visualized that nice, relaxed feeling, seeing the ball come to you, using your hands and using your ability and not trying to overswing.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone!
To Gibson, the practice of visualizing may just come naturally. But to others, like Bales, it's become a science he works at daily.
Were you imaging the pitch before you threw it, as we talked about, or were you back in your old routine?
No, first 5 minutes I was imaging, then I started getting tired and I didn't. It's something I couldn't do at first. It was hard for me. And then working on it every day, practicing visualization, I can visualize almost every act I do now on the mound.
Bales' problems are not over. But this season, he's pitched well, thanks to a program that, for him, has been a must.
Some guys, I think, at a certain level, Roger Clemens and, you know, Nolan Ryan, their talent is enough, they can probably just go out there and pitch. I think 80% of Major League pitchers need to have that extra edge, and it's an edge I hadn't had, you know, an edge of knowing I've prepared, I've eaten right, I've slept right, I've visualized what I want to do. You have a nice little game plan going out there. Instead of in the minor leagues, I could go out there and just throw and win. But up here, the competition is so much better. I needed a little more, and I had to work on it.
Now that Bales has put mind over matter, he figures to regain that competitive edge. Time now for this week's quiz, brought to you by today's Chevy truck. Keith Hernandez has won 11 straight Gold Gloves. Can you name the last National League first baseman before Hernandez to win a Gold Glove? With win number 200 safely in hand, the newly turned 40-year-old Rick Russell just kept rolling along, winning his next 2 starts to become the National League's first 8-game winner. Despite numbers like that, Russell still isn't a household name, but that's a fact that doesn't bother him much.
Maybe a little bit, but I don't really mind. It's been that way my whole career. I've kind of just snuck up on people just by sticking around as long as I have.
I think if you remember that fable you heard when you were a kid about the tortoise and the hare, I kind of liken the Big Daddy to a tortoise. He just keeps on plodding and he gets there, and usually ahead of everybody else.
Krukow knows of whom he speaks. He nicknamed Russell Big Daddy in the mid-'70s when they were teammates on the Cubs. There, as part of a close-knit and talented pitching staff, Russell was a steady workhorse who had his best season in 1977, going 20-10.
When I think about my career, playing baseball, those are the teams that mostly come to mind, the guys that I grew up with, playing in Chicago. My best friends probably are from those teams. You know, I hope to end my career there. I kind of went to New York with a bad attitude.
After being traded to the Yankees in the strike-shortened '81 season, Russell's attitude improved when he finally landed in the World Series, starting 2 games. But soon after, he had what every pitcher fears, a sore arm.
There wasn't a specific instance that caused my problem. The doctor said it was just too many years of throwing too many pitches, and I didn't tear the rotator cuff. I wore a hole in it over the years.
It took almost 2 years to make it back, and he did, with his old team. But in '84, when the Cubs went to the playoffs, Russell, not fully recovered, was left off the roster.
That probably hurt me more than anything that's ever happened in my career, even more than the injury itself. But, you know, I've gotten over it, and it's turned out to be a blessing that they didn't want me back, because I was able to go to a team where I could pitch, and if I'd have stayed with the Cubs, I'd have probably ended up doing more of what I did in '84 and probably not pitched much more than another year.
After Russell signed with the Pirates in '85, he started the season in AAA. But he came up in late May, and from then on was better than ever. He was the league's comeback player of the year, going 14-8 with a 2.27 ERA, the best of his career. 2 years later, Rick was traded to the Giants. Quickly dispelling any notions that he was through, Rick helped them win their division and soon became the ace of the staff, winning 19 games last year. And now he's topped the 200 mark.
It was very important from the standpoint that back in '82 and '83, I thought I was done playing baseball. And I had a real hard time getting a job after the injury, and to be able to come back now and have a couple of good years and achieve this milestone, it means a lot to me.
I've had him now. This is going on my third year, and the 2 springs I've had him. My media says he's all washed up. He's too fat. He doesn't have a real good spring, but the guy always leads the league in either wins or ERA or complete games, and he doesn't look like an athlete, but he's a great fielding pitcher. He's won a Gold Glove Award at least one time. He's a good hitter. He's a good base runner, and, you know, he wins.
Detroit hadn't been winning much. In fact, they were dead last in the American League East, with only 1 regular hitting above 300. Seems frustration took a toll on Sparky Anderson, who followed doctor's orders and left the team for a little R&R.
I knew Sparky wasn't feeling well the last week or so, and his back was bothering him some. He complained about a bad back, and I think we all have that a little bit. But nothing as serious as complete exhaustion and leaving the ball club.
Tracewski has taken over, and the Tigers' dead wood has started to come to life, carrying Detroit out of the cellar with 7 wins in 10 games. This home run by Alan Trammell beat Kansas City in the bottom of the 9th inning. The night before, the Royals got a similar jolt from Lou Whitaker, who also hit one out in the 9th.
Lou ripped it down the right field line, curving. It's gone. Tigers win.
A big lift for a team that's last in the league in hitting, last in runs scored. No wonder they've been giving thanks to Whitaker. Showing more power than usual, Sweet Lou has 10 homers, 5 more than any other Tiger. He's also chalked up 24 RBIs. But one Tiger who has failed to come up with his usual bag of tricks is Jack Martis. In his last outing before being sidelined with a bum elbow, he got tagged by the Indians for 3 homers in the first inning, and 4 altogether. And in losing the game, Morris ruined his perfect 15-0 home record against Cleveland. A streak of a different sort ended in Philadelphia. Steve Jeltz came up in the last of the 8th with a score tied at 1. Sacrifice was the order, with a runner on first and nobody out. The Padres planned accordingly, but on the first pitch, Jeltz failed to bunt. A few pitches later, Nick Leyva switched the order to a hit and run. Again, Jeltz tried and failed.
Full swing, and he taps a foul. Hit and run, of course, Ford was going, and the ball probably would have bounced up there had Jeltz not fouled it.
The Phillies knew they weren't about to see a home run, but with 2 strikes, Jeltz fooled everybody.
Well hit to right field. This ball is out of here. Home run, the Jets. And the Bills have taken a 3-1 lead.
Jeltz's game winner was also his first home run in 1,397 at-bats, the longest drought of any active player, but not the longest ever. That record belongs to Dwayne Kuiper, who hit his first home run after more than 1,300 at-bats and then retired 1,998 at-bats later without another. How about that? Now, the answer to this week's quiz, brought to you by today's Chevy truck. In 1977, first baseman Steve Garvey won his 4th straight Gold Glove. Keith Hernandez has won it every year since. The Yankees' Roberto Kelly needed a quick checkup after a tough night in center field.
1-1 to Polonia with Billy Bean running, and he slices one away from Roberto Kelly, and the ball caroms off Kelly's chest. In comes Lansford. Scoring after Lansford is Billy Bean, and Polonia trying to go inside the park. He's out at the plate.
The ball hit Kelly in the head. 5 days later, the same thing happened. But the Yankees still won. And as for Kelly, well, that reminds me of the time they rushed Dizzy Dean to the hospital from the ballpark. The next day, a newspaper headline read, "Dizzy Dean's head x-rayed, found nothing." Just having fun, Roberto. Hey, sign this kid up. That was the cry in Baltimore, where fans were turning all kinds of tricks in the stands.
Now he's punting, but pops it foul. That a nice catch by a youngster in the first goal.
Got his glove, caught the ball.
He slices it down the left field line. McDowell with a long run and can't get there. Another fine play by a spectator, although I think he dropped it.
But he didn't drop the next one.
Down the left field line, and it's caught by a fan. Foul ball, but the same guy, isn't it?
Yeah, he finally got one. He missed that other one, but he got the ball this time.
The play of this day, though, went to a shirtless, gloveless, and evidently fearless fellow who got more than just a hand for his efforts. Now to the Hall of Fame and an historian's dream. The most famous landmark in Cooperstown, New York, may be the Hall of Fame, but lesser known is its library, which satisfies even the most curious baseball fan.
The library was dedicated and established when the Hall of Fame was established in 1939. And its first acquisitions were player record cards, which came to us from the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues. And they were records of minor league and professional baseball players.
The book collection is vast, but the library's true treasures are tucked away inside file cabinets where you can find an entry for every player, the famous as well as the obscure.
We have about 10,000 titles, but actually the books turn out to be not the most important part of our collection from the standpoint of historical baseball research. We have file folders on former Major League players and on baseball officials, and we collect clipping material, newspaper material, and other things related to those players and officials. We have about 150,000 historical baseball photographs, some of which you see behind me. And we have special collections like sheet music, audio recordings, video recordings. So the collection's quite diverse.
This is over 100 years old, this paper. 1883, and you can see the condition that it's in. I'm here working on 3 or 4 projects related to the history of baseball umpires, a biographical encyclopedia of umpires since 1871, and a general history of baseball umpiring.
What I'm doing here at the Baseball Hall of Fame is concentrating on the team names in baseball going back to 1876. The book includes hockey, football, soccer, basketball, but the resources here are so good that I can do research on other sports besides baseball.
As with any library, the Hall of Fame is always in search of new material. Here, that means going to private sources.
Families of ball players donate photographs. We get them from fans. Occasionally we find them in collections, estate collections that are passed along to us. They come in player scrapbooks and so on. Nothing is purchased of that sort. We don't buy memorabilia here. That's been a long-standing policy, so this is a fans museum. What we do offer in return is a lifetime pass.
So if you want to look up the origin of team colors or the history of the word shortstop, here lies the answer.
I think it's a critical tool for baseball researchers, partly because the unparalleled collection of books, magazines, clippings, and official records, and also because of the extraordinary staff here, truly a knowledgeable staff throughout, so the assistance they render is fantastic.
Time now for our Player of the Week, brought to you by Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Randy Bush led the Twins on a good old-fashioned blowout in Texas, in which Minnesota won 19-3. No pitcher was safe from Bush's bat, least of all shortstop Jeff Kunkel, who came in to mop up. But he couldn't stem the tide as Bush hit his second homer and wound up with 8 RBIs, all in a night's work. Next week, we'll meet Julie Croteau, the newest first baseman at St. Mary's College, the first woman ever to play NCAA baseball. That's all for now, folks. See you next week on This Week in Baseball.
Catch all the action when the Detroit Tigers go up against the Kansas City Royals live from Royal Stadium tomorrow starting at 2. And the Pistons title tour moves to the Windy City as Isaiah and the Bad Boys try to beat the Bulls. Don't miss the plays tomorrow night at 11:30 on Sports Final Edition. Now stay tuned as the Oakland A's take on the New York Yankees next on the NBC Game of the Week, only on Channel 4.